Today's episode is brought to you by HERdacity. HERdacity is a nonprofit inspiring confidence in women to achieve their professional goals. For resources, networking opportunities, and a strong community of women, visit HERdacity.org to learn more.
Welcome to HERdacious, a podcast for audacious women. Greetings to you all. Welcome to HERdacious, the podcast for audacious women looking to up their career game with a little bit of professional advice. My name's Lorelei and I'm the host. Today we're going to be talking about how to get more comfortable discussing money. And to join me in this conversation, we have the principal of an investment firm that provides investment advice and strategic consulting to nonprofits. She is passionate about education and women's issues, Miss Akasha Absher. Hello.
Hello.
Pleased to have you joining us via Zoom today.
I'm pleased to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
It is my absolute pleasure. I know that talking about money is such a weird conversational thing, and I am really thrilled to have an expert talk to us about how we can get more comfortable and confident discussing money and why it's important.
Of course. Yes, it is definitely something that for most people is taboo and challenging. I think we can start with really, why is it important to talk about money? Why is it important to pay attention to your money?
Yes, please.
On
Tell
a
us why
personal
it's
level.
important to talk about money.
So there's a quote by Vicki Robbins that money is the thing that most of us choose to trade our life energy for.
Whoa.
So on a personal level, you're trading your life energy for something. And then think about it on a societal level. Money gives us the powers to make decisions, what we eat, where we can shop. That decision making gives us a voice. So you think about it. This is something we would change our life energy for, or trade our life energy for, and it gives us a voice. So why wouldn't we talk about this? Shouldn't this be the thing we talk about the most?
One would think. It still seems really uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think it's really uncomfortable for a lot of people, particularly because as you think about our society and how we were raised or socialized to the idea about money. Most of us would rather raise our hands to discuss the last TV show or join a book club before you join an investment club. I mean, if somebody said to me tomorrow, do you want to join an investment club? Well, actually, I'm a geek. I would probably say yes, but most people would say, no, I'd rather join. Yeah.
No.
I don't even want to read about it.
I don't even want to talk to you anymore. Stop talking. Investment club?
Basically. Yes. And I think part of that is because money creates fear or guilt from the absence of it, the abundance of it. Either way, you're made to feel inept or feel bad because you have more than someone else. In addition, our education system doesn't even prioritize it. Most parents don't know how to help their children to have a relationship with money because they weren't taught to have a relationship with money. And for women, it's even more extreme. We weren't taught financial planning in school, and you grew up in a culture that has implied that girls weren't good at math.
Oh, that is so true.
Yes. It's only recently that we've had to look at STEM, science, technology, and math careers, where there's been a focus on making sure that young girls and women are focused on STEM careers. There is a nonprofit called STEM for Her, and it says women in STEM make up only 24% of the careers, yet more than half of the overall population are women. So clearly, there is a disconnect between women in science, technology, and math.
100%. And I can speak from personal experience. I remember being in algebra class in high school. I don't remember which algebra class it was, but I remember my super old school algebra teacher, who was a older white male. He would not call on the girls in the classroom for questions. He would allow the boys to ask questions and answer their questions. And it was almost like this reinforcement that our questions weren't going to be important enough to answer. They weren't going to be intelligent enough for him to even waste his time on. And that sent such a powerful message to me that I really never was able to fully assess until I became an adult, and to see the ramifications of having such a negative experience in the classroom that really turned me off of math. And now I have a partner who actually tutors students in the maths and the sciences. And he was talking to me the other day about how there's a study out there that talks about if you literally just reinforce in the classroom that certain populations are great at math, they will literally just do better in the class just by hearing someone say, oh, girls are great at math. Boys are great at math.
It's so true.
The perspective shift on that is so incredible. So you are advocating for a perspective shift on how we talk about money.
Yes, and a bias shift as well.
A bias shift. Tell me more about the bias shift.
We put a lot of emphasis on people's self-worth by how much money they do or do not have.
Yeah.
And so if we can shift a bias, regardless of how much you have or how little you have, you are still worthy, then I think it would change the way we have a conversation about money.
That doesn't sound like an easy shift to make, though.
No, it's not an easy shift to make. But I do think, we were talking about why it's so important. We need to start breaking through that discomfort and building a healthy relationship with our money personally, where we discuss it, we evaluate our money situation personally, and we also use our money to advocate for the world in which we want to see.
So how do we do that?
Well, first, let's talk about why you build that relationship, right? So personally, we discussed that investing in you is the most important thing you can do for yourself, right? Talking about money is the way to get started. And the road to wealth or to building your wealth or security through your career is with your earnings, right? We talked about you're trading most of your life for this money. And when you're able to discuss money or have a healthy relationship with discussing money, you can negotiate your salary, you can advocate for yourself. And negotiating your salary is particularly important because your salary is what you do. That's your money that you get. And you have to be able to talk with others about what's the comps out there or comparable salaries that people are making, so that when you go into your review or decision-making time, you can advocate for yourself. But until you have that healthy relationship with money and can have a conversation about it or even talk to your friends about it, you're not going to advocate for it. You might not even know what your salary should be and what you're doing. Most women are underpaid versus men. There's a wage gap out there. Women make about 81% of what men make. And some of that is because we allow it to happen. And when I say we allow it to happen, I don't mean that corporations are blameless in this, that companies are blameless. They are 100% responsible, but we're also responsible for advocating for ourselves. So if you know that a male person counterpart or another woman counterpart is making more than you for doing the same role, it is your responsibility to also advocate for yourself to make that same amount of money. And that will only come from building that relationship with money.
Is there a bigger picture here than just having the relationship as a person to your money?
Yes, there is a much bigger picture. The way we talk about and engage with our money can help address issues of poverty, economic growth, climate change, sustainable communities. When you think about your money, we talked a little bit about where you eat, where you shop. Those decisions that you make, they have broader ramifications than you even know about. By looking at where you shop, you could potentially be supporting local businesses. You could potentially be supporting women-owned companies. You are voting with your dollars about what you want to see in society.
100%.
And all of that is by having a conversation or intentionality around your money. When you invest, you're doing the same thing. So for society, when you're thinking about it, your money can help also think about reducing inequalities, particularly when you think about, as I mentioned, where you shop, where you eat, how you invest. Those companies that you are supporting through your purchases or through your investments, they engage with employees, they engage with communities, and you can vote for how you want them to engage with employees and communities by the way in which you purchase their products, you invest in their businesses, And even if you do invest in their businesses, by the way, you vote for proxies. So if there are issues that you want to see, really taking advantage of those issues, and that's a whole nother topic that we can go down another day, but taking advantage of those and thinking about, how do I vote for the world I want to see? But day to day, just by your spending, you can have a voice.
And we can't leave that decision to others. We have to take an active role.
You do have to take an active role. And now is really the time where we need to stop leaving the decision making to others and start taking an active role, so that we can advocate for the world we want to see, so that we can have equal wages, so that we can make sure employees are getting a living wage, so that we can make sure communities are adequately taken care of by the companies in which they engage.
And give the majority of their lives to.
Basically.
Yes. I hear so much passion in you on the topic of money. Obviously, that's why you're here today. But how did you get to this point? Was there a moment for you that made this somehow more poignant?
I don't know that there was a moment that made it more poignant. I would say I am on a learning journey. One of the things I did realize growing up was that money was important into building wealth, and also to get an education, and also it was part of a career. So funny enough, I decided to go into finance after watching Pretty Women. Now, most people would say, what? But if you may remember, nobody does, but Richard Gere bought and sold companies.
Yeah.
And I thought that was super cool, right? I was like, what is this buying and selling companies? And he was super wealthy. And so I was like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. So I did some more research in college, and I was blessed with a nonprofit organization called Sponsors for Educational Opportunity, put minorities on Wall Street. So I was able to get my foot in the door, and I worked at Blackstone in mergers and acquisitions. And so that was my first foray into the world of money. But just because I went into a finance career and I was getting a degree in finance, I had no idea about personal finances. So of course, as we all do in college, we spend a lot on credit cards because you're in college, right? And they hand them out like they're candy. You say, oh, well, yeah, I need this and I need that. So of course, my first credit card bill was pretty high. Thankfully, I had a bit of a social safety net that helped me, but that was my first foray into, oh, you have to pay this back, right? The interest is really high and it grows, but again, no one really taught me about that. And I had a roommate in college who had gone through bankruptcy as well. And so that in college. And so that was super powerful because you started to realize all of the things that she could not do or the problems that she had by going through bankruptcy. So all of those things were my first foray into, I would love to say saving, but it was lack thereof saving. It was more spending. As I went on, none of that was me advocating for myself. That was just me understanding my financial situation. And when I was working, at one point, I accidentally overheard what some others were making in my position, and I was making a lot less. So I said, well, I should do something about this. I went to friends, I went to colleagues, I did some research online, and I started figuring out how much I was worth in this seat. I didn't go demanding into my boss's office, and I waited for a review, and I waited for them to tell me I was doing a great job. And I said, oh, well, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Is there a reason why I know the range is this, I am not in this range? And needless to say, I ended up being bumped in that range.
Woo-hoo.
But if I didn't ask for it, right, if I didn't ask for it, it wasn't like somebody was handing it to me. And so that was second. Like, okay, so I need to constantly be making sure I'm having a conversation with people about money, about salary, so that I know that I'm getting paid what I need to be getting paid. That was sort of the next stage of my learning journey. And I'm currently on the change-making learning journey with regards to how money is a platform for creating change.
Ooh, tell me more.
Look at it like this. Business Insider did a study of Apple, Microsoft, Walmart, and not surprisingly, the scale of their combined profits are larger than the revenues of many of the world's countries.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Right. It's not surprising. These companies have the power and influence over workers, customers, communities. It would only make sense that how you spend your money can make a difference, right? Ideally, if we want Microsoft, Apple, Walmart, etc., if we're going to shop there, you're shopping there at least knowing that they have the policies that you believe in, or hoping that they have the policies that you believe in and can change. Now, in some cases, it's hard because these are big behemoths. So we're not necessarily always going to be able to make change through our spending, but in some ways, we can make change through our spending, through our investing, etc. And that requires us to have a healthy relationship with our money and how we're saving it, how we're spending it, talking about it.
So what kind of examples of talking about it did you come across during, I guess, maybe your early work experience or even your college experience? Because I imagine you were around people that were practicing what you are now preaching.
Yes, most definitely. Interestingly, I went into a finance career. So the majority of finance is men. And so men don't have a problem with this. What I learned from men is that they would talk about their salaries. So I actually had it pretty easy when I needed to go ask about salaries, because what I would do is would go to my male colleagues and say, so give me a range of what you think a salary should be for this job. They were more than happy to give you a range. So as you're thinking about your investments, are you thinking this way or that way? They're more than happy to talk about their investment strategies. And so they were modeling the behavior that a lot of times we as women don't have that same relationship with money. I still feel more comfortable to have a conversation around money with my guy friends than I am with my female friends.
Can we dig into that just a hair? So for everyone listening, you can't see this, but Akasha is a woman of color. Do you think that your background being raised in communities of color influenced your relationship in conversations around money?
That's an interesting question, and I'm not sure it's one I have delved into too much. I will say when I started making a salary that was greater, I was raised by my grandparents, than both my grandparents made combined in their entire working lives. It was uncomfortable because you didn't necessarily want to go back and say, hey, I'm making this salary. How do you have that conversation? And so they would have been super happy for me and are super happy for me. I think it was more, you felt like you were bragging than you were really asking for advice. And I look back now and that was totally the wrong thing to do. I should have gone to them for advice. I should have asked them what they thought. We did talk about money growing up, but it was more about saving. It wasn't a lot about salary negotiations. Again, I was raised by grandparents who were both of color. And so standing up for yourself is more challenging, I think, during the time period that they came up. For a good chunk of their lives, they didn't have civil rights, right? So advocating for your salary isn't necessarily something that you're
lower on the totem pole. Yeah.
Right.
I gotcha. Okay.
Just hoping you have one is the first. I don't know. I would have to think about that more. I assume it definitely does, but I haven't delved into that.
All right. So we're going to take a quick moment to advocate for our sponsor.
Hi, Barbie here from Moonray, husband and wife indie pop duo. If you enjoy the intro music, we invite you to listen to our debut EP, Honeymoon, streaming now on all platforms. Visit www.moonray-music.com for more.
And we're back talking with Akasha Absher on building a relationship with money, learning to talk about it and getting more comfortable discussing money with our friends, family, colleagues, what have you. Akasha, share a little bit more on why it's important to build this comfort level in regards to discussing our finances.
First off, I want to start with we as women are strong. We're capable of everything. We are mothers, we are wives, we are aunts, we're employees and executives, CEOs and business owners, and we make up over half of the population. And we have power, and money has power, and money has decision making. It's truly important that we build that relationship so that we can advocate for not only ourselves, and I talk a little bit about this, but also others. You don't have to be good at math actually. You don't have to have a finance degree. You don't have to be anything different than who you are to have this relationship with money. And why you want to do that is because as you think about, we talked a little bit about building your wealth, earnings over your lifetime are used for you, for your family, and for a lot of people for the community. And we recycle earnings back into the community over a lifetime. So really thinking about how powerful that is important so that you can build that healthy relationship with money. And you get started by that really when you start to think about, okay, so let's sit down and just even look at my financial situation, right? Where am I spending my money? Let's start there. That's step one. Where are you spending your money, right?
All right. So let's say we're all getting a little more in our comfort zone in just being open to the idea of discussing our finances, whether it's our salary or how much we've saved or what our 401k looks like or what kind of investment vehicles we are considering using, what have you. So where do we start?
So I would say starting with education. I am passionate about education, so I'm always starting there. And I would say the cool thing about when I started that is different now than when I started is the amount of online resources we have. There are so many resources for you to even just say, okay, so we're starting with how do I spend my money? No judgment. Where do I spend it? What do I spend it on? You could put it in Mint. You can put it in all kinds of online tools, which just tells you how you spend your money. And again, by starting there with no judgment, I will tell you, my husband and I use Mint for budget planning. And the way Mint works is it rolls over month to month. And we had 1 month where we blew our restaurant bill on day 2 of that month.
Oh,
I know. We were traveling, so it was a little bit different. And again, it rolls month to month, so it's a year-long thing. But it's like, okay, we did that. No judgment. Why do you do that? And so once you start tracking those things, you can have an idea of how much you're spending so that you can start thinking about saving. You can also have an idea of where you spend, so you can start thinking about who am I giving my money to? And so as you think about that, I would say maybe even thinking about how do you have a club. And when I say a club, right, we have Fitbit groups. We challenge each other to lose 15 pounds all the time. We never challenge each other to save any money. We never challenge each other to have conversations about, hey, can I spend, I don't know, a month and not shop at Amazon?
what a great idea.
But we never have these kinds of conversations. And so are there ways in which we can think about making it fun for us and creating goals without saying, I make X? We're all in this together. We're all probably saving for a house. We're all probably wanting to have a family at some point. And we all at some point will retire and need to save for that. So we're all in this together. And so how do we have conversations together with no judgment?
Give me a few more examples of some of your favorite online tools. I assume, as a finance professional, you have a few favorites because you've mentioned Mint already. What are some of the others?
So money.com is one of my favorites. I find it very easy to use and to understand, and it goes through an educational piece on what is a mutual fund, how do you invest, etc.
Okay.
Marketwatch.com, they have a great retirement calculator that I like. And you can play with it. It has a bunch of input. Interestingly, for women, Elevest, which was started by Sally Krawcheck, is an online platform. I'm not advocating for it. I just think it's very interesting and something to look into. It's built by women for women, and it's an online investment firm.
Okay.
Wall Street Journal has a podcast, The Secrets to Wealthy Women.
Oh.
And so there are all these great women who talk about their secrets and what they're doing and how they're having conversations about it. And so they're talking about money. So can you. And to some extent, if you're afraid to talk about it with others, at least don't be afraid to listen to others, right? So you can get stuff from people who are willing to talk about it.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. So after the education piece, what's next? I imagine there are more steps for you as far as getting into the game on the financial combo.
Yes. So after the education piece, start thinking about creating goals, right? So as you think about creating your goals, what do you desire? Do you want a house? Do you want a car? Do you want children? Where are you in those goals? And start talking about how much those things cost and how you'll get to them. And then really start thinking about the change you want to see in this world and how those places where you shop or the companies you invest in are supporting that change or going against that change.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for pointing that out. I try to stay cognizant of where I vote with my wallet. And there's a lot of places to vote, you know?
There are.
Which means we kind of have to do some homework if we want to be community conscious shoppers, if we want to be environmentally conscious shoppers, if we want to be fiscally responsible shoppers. And I know how difficult that is. You know, listening to a professional tell me that once more is just a great reaffirmation that while it's a little bit of work, it's totally worth it.
And it's not all or nothing. One, it's never too early or never too late to try. So let's start there. And also, I'm not saying tomorrow, because I will tell you, there are some places where I'd like to figure out how to reduce my spending and that I still spend. But I'm also thinking of other places to spend. So is the business I shopped at women-owned? Is the business I shopped at diverse-owned? Where do they source their products? Are they ethically made? Now, some of that is sometimes more expensive. But then the question is, do I need 5 pairs of shoes or can I get away with 2? More than likely, I can get away with 2. COVID has helped that a lot.
You're right.
You have started to see some of the things that are important and are not important. But really part of just being intentional about this and thinking about this is we are at a time where we have an opportunity to make a difference for ourselves and for others. And so really using this time to look into how you do that and to look into how you build that healthy relationship.
I love that you mentioned being intentional. I think it's a really important point for us to get intentional about leaning into the discomfort in discussing our money.
100%.
How do we start doing that right now? Start tomorrow.
Well, you and I are having a conversation about money now.
You're right. How do our listeners start after this step of listening to women talk about money?
Yes. I would say, one, start by looking at some of those podcasts or looking out for other podcasts to start listening and start creating ideas with your friends. The next time you text with one of your friends, ask them if they've ever thought about where they spend their money and how they're doing that differently. Ask them, if you don't mind, and you know someone's saving for a house, ask them and say, so I'm thinking about saving for a house as well. Do you mind sharing how you've been doing that? It is discomfort, but for the most part, people are usually open to helping to share their tips. Somebody might say, I've been struggling with that too. Hey, can we create a plan together? Things of that sort.
Excellent. Well, thank you for coming together with me on this conversation. I really hope this is impactful for all the ladies who will listen to this episode. And I truly believe that the message you're sharing today on getting comfortable and confident in discussing our money is a game changer. And I think it will change the inequity of power that women hold in this country and around this globe if we get more comfortable talking about our money.
Agreed. I think we as women are powerful. And this is the one place where we could just be more powerful. And so if we're ready to lean into that discomfort and ready to take over our power with regards to money and our decision making, the world could be a much better place.
Agreed. Thank you. We're going to transition into the time where we normally discuss our Femme fact, but it's going to be a little different today. We are recording this episode exactly 1 week after the death of George Floyd, a father of 2 who was killed through police use of excessive force in Minneapolis, Minnesota. In the week following his death, protests and riots have sprung up around our country to give voice to the loss of Black lives and the violation of the social contract of our nation. By now, you've heard the names: George Floyd in Minnesota, Breonna Taylor in Kentucky, Ahmaud Arbery in Florida. 3 amongst thousands of Black Americans killed by police in the past few years alone. For those unfamiliar with the concept of the social contract, I'd like to share a brief description with you today. The social contract, at its core, is the action and idea where individuals cede power to the states in which they live, as part of a greater agreement to the populace as a whole and to the governing body. This agreement is supposed to provide all citizens with inalienable rights and makes the state the arbiter of impartial justice, meaning that the state becomes responsible for treating all its citizens in a fair and equitable nature, because it is in the state's legitimizing interest to protect its citizens, just as it is in the citizens' interest to have the state act as their protector and adjudicator. Many philosophers have written differing versions of the social contract over the millennia, going all the way back to 2nd century BCE. One of the Epicurean ethics from the 4th century is as follows. Natural justice is a pledge of reciprocal benefit to prevent one person from harming or being harmed by another. Rousseau, in the 1700s, said that each of us puts his person and all his power in common under the supreme direction of the general will, and in a body we receive each member as an indivisible part of the whole. However, some folks have asked the question over time if we as flawed human beings are able to uphold the social contract at all. Alexander Hamilton once asked in the Federalist Papers whether men are really capable or not of establishing good government from reflection and choice, or whether they are forever destined to depend for their political constitutions on accident and force. Human rights extend to every person in our nation, regardless of gender, ethnicity, race, creed, color, orientation, religious affiliation, socioeconomic status, or other. As host to this podcast, I felt the call to share our solidarity with our communities of color. I am hurt, I am ashamed, I am angry, and I want better for our nation. Black Americans account for less than 13% of the U.S. population, but the rate at which they are shot and killed by police is more than twice as high as the rate for white Americans. Additionally, 99% of killings by police officers from 2013 to 2019 have not resulted in those officers being charged with the crime. As former President Obama recently stated, this shouldn't be normal in America. It can't be normal. If we want our children to grow up in a nation that lives up to its highest ideals, we can and must be better. We as a nation must be able to recognize when the social contract of America has failed to be upheld for some, and then to look for ways that we can help right this injustice for the good of all. Thank you for listening today. My heart goes out to all of those suffering, striving, and seeking justice. I am with you.
Thank you, Lorelei. I am with you as well. My heart goes out. As a woman of color, I am just destroyed by everything that has happened. And so thank you. I stand with you and our community as well.
Thank you. And I am very grateful to have had your presence on this show today, Akasha.
Thank you.
On behalf of HERdacious, I'm Lorelei. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you next week.